I caught my fiancé in bed with my friend. What? Gonna cry? She mocked. I smiled and left. This morning my phone was full of their calls, but I'd moved on. Their betrayal freed me. I didn't cry. I acted. Now they beg, and I'm building a new life. My revenge is their emptiness, and I'm stronger. You know that feeling when your whole world just flips upside down in like 3 seconds flat? That was me last Tuesday, standing in my own bedroom doorway, watching my fiancé Mark tangled up with my best friend Sarah like they were auditioning for some trashy reality show. No cap, I thought I was gonna lose it right there on the spot. I'd been working double shifts at the hospital for weeks, saving up for our wedding next spring. The ring on my finger suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds as I watched them scramble to cover themselves up. Mark's face went whiter than a Bud Light can, and Sarah? Girl had the audacity to smirk at me like she'd just won the lottery. What, gonna cry? She said, not even bothering to look embarrassed, just straight up mocking me while sitting naked in my bed, in my apartment, with my man. The disrespect was honestly impressive in the worst possible way. But here's the thing. That probably surprised everyone in that room, including myself. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my Starbucks venti Pike Place at the wall like some dramatic movie scene. I just stood there for a hot minute, taking it all in, and then I smiled. Like genuinely smiled. All right then, I said, calm as anything. Y'all have fun. And I walked right back out that door. The look on their faces was priceless, for real. They were probably expecting some big blow-up, maybe some Jerry Springer-level drama, but nope. I grabbed my keys, my purse, and bounced, left them sitting there looking confused as heck. I drove straight to my sister's place across town, hands steady on the wheel of my little Honda Civic, Taylor Swift blasting through the speakers. Funny how we are never ever getting back together. Hits different when you're living it in real time. My phone started buzzing like crazy, Mark calling, Sarah texting, both of them probably panicking about what I was gonna do next. I turned that sucker off and went inside. My sister Katie took one look at my face and knew something was up. She's always been good at reading people, comes with being a teacher, I guess. She made us some coffee in her kitchen, the one with the little rooster decorations everywhere, and I told her the whole story, every messy detail. So what's the plan? She asked, leaning against her counter like we were discussing weekend barbecue plans instead of my entire life falling apart. Honestly, I don't know yet, but I'm not going back there tonight. Katie nodded and handed me one of her oversized University of Texas sweatshirts. Guest room's all yours, sis. Stay as long as you need. That first night, lying in Katie's spare bed with her cat Mr. Whiskers purring on my chest, I started thinking, really thinking, about Mark, about Sarah, about the past 3 years of my life. And you know what I realized? I wasn't even that heartbroken. Angry? Sure. Disappointed? Absolutely. But devastated? Not really. Maybe that should have scared me, but it didn't. It felt like clarity. Update. Thanks for all the support, everyone. Reading your comments has been like having a virtual support group, no joke. Some of you asked if I've talked to them yet. The answer is nope, still radio silent on my end. My phone's been going off like the 4th of July, but I'm not ready for that conversation. Question for y'all though, should I even bother hearing them out, or is some betrayal just too deep to come back from? The next morning, I woke up feeling more refreshed than I had in months. Katie was already up, making pancakes from scratch like the domestic goddess she is, humming some country song under her breath. The smell of bacon filled the whole house, and for the first time in forever, I felt hungry. Actually hungry, not just eating because I was supposed to. Sleep okay? She asked, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. Better than I have in weeks, honestly. And that was the truth. I'd been sleeping terribly for months, always tossing and turning, stressed about wedding planning and work and trying to keep everyone happy. But last night, I slept like a baby. Over breakfast, I started making lists. Yeah, I'm one of those people who makes lists for everything. Grocery shopping, work schedules, life decisions, you name it. Katie laughed when she saw me pull out my trusty notepad, the one with the coffee stains and the bent corners. What's that one for? Things I need to handle, I said, writing down apartment lease, engagement ring, wedding venues, mutual friends. Might as well be practical about this whole situation. The first item on my list was the hardest one, going back to get my stuff. I knew they'd probably be waiting for me, ready with explanations and apologies and all that jazz. But I needed my work clothes, my nursing supplies, my books. Plus, legally speaking, my name was on that lease too. Katie offered to come with me for moral support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. I drove back to the apartment complex around noon, when I figured Mark would be at his construction job, and Sarah would hopefully be wherever people who sleep with their friends' fiancés go during the day. The parking lot looked the same as always, Mrs. Chen watering her plants on the second floor balcony, some kids playing basketball near the dumpsters, the sound of a lawnmower somewhere in the distance. But when I got to our door, well, his door now, I guess, I could hear voices inside, both of them, talking in hushed tones like they were planning something. I used my key as quietly as possible and slipped inside. They were in the living room, sitting on that ugly brown couch Mark had insisted on keeping from his bachelor pad days. Sarah was wearing one of my favorite hoodies, which honestly felt like adding insult to injury. They didn't notice me at first, too caught up in their conversation. She's not answering any of my texts, Sarah was saying, sounding more annoyed than guilty. This silent treatment thing is so childish. Maybe we should just give her some space, Mark replied, but he sounded uncertain. Let her cool off, you know? Cool off? Sarah laughed, and not in a nice way. She walked in on us, doing the deed and just left. That's not normal behavior, Mark. Normal people fight. Normal people make scenes. She's planning something. I almost laughed out loud at that. Planning something? Lady, I was just trying to figure out where I was gonna live. Mark spotted me first, jumping up from the couch like it was on fire. Hey, I didn't hear you come in. We need to talk. Actually, I just came to get my things, I said, keeping my voice level. Don't mind me. I walked past them into the bedroom, which still smelled faintly like Sarah's vanilla perfume. Gross. I grabbed my biggest suitcase from the closet and started packing methodically. Work scrubs, favorite jeans, the sweater my mom knitted me last Christmas. They followed me, of course. Mark hovering in the doorway looking uncomfortable, Sarah leaning against the dresser like she belonged there. We should really talk about this, Mark said. What happened yesterday? It's not what you think. I paused in my packing and looked at him. Really looked at him. This guy I'd been planning to marry, to build a life with, to maybe have kids with someday. Sandy brown hair that stuck up in the back when he slept, green eyes that crinkled when he laughed, hands calloused from construction work. 3 years together, and suddenly he felt like a stranger. It's exactly what I think, I said quietly. You two were having sex in our bed, in the bed where I sleep every night. There's not really much room for interpretation there. Sarah rolled her eyes. It just happened, okay? These things happen. You don't need to be so dramatic about it. Dramatic? I almost laughed. Sarah, I haven't been dramatic at all. I haven't yelled or thrown things or posted about it on social media or called your mom to tell her what you did. I've been the opposite of dramatic. That's what's weird about it, she shot back. It's like you don't even care. And there it was. The truth I'd been dancing around since yesterday. I zipped up my suitcase and turned to face them both. You're right, I said. I don't care. Not the way I should anyway. And that tells me everything I need to know about where we were headed. Mark's face crumpled. Don't say that. We can work through this. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Mark. Mistakes are forgetting to pick up milk or double booking dinner plans. This was a choice. Multiple choices, actually. And not just yours, hers too. I looked at Sarah, still wearing my hoodie like it was no big deal. How long? What? How long has this been going on? Because I'm betting yesterday wasn't the first time. They exchanged a look, and that told me everything. Sarah had the decency to look slightly ashamed, finally. 2 months, Mark mumbled. 2 months. 2 months of coming home tired from 12-hour shifts at the hospital, making dinner for us both, talking about wedding plans, while he was sneaking around with my best friend behind my back. 2 months of lies and fake smiles and how was your day, babe? Update. Okay, some of you predicted this in the comments and you were totally right. It had been going on way longer than just that one time. 2 whole months of lying to my face. I'm honestly impressed with my own calm right now because inside I want to scream. But here's what's eating at me. Should I tell our mutual friends what really happened or take the high road? What would you do? 2 months, I repeated, more to myself than to them, while I was working extra shifts to pay for our wedding. It's not like we planned it, Sarah said defensively. It just started happening after that party at Jake's place. You remember, you had to leave early for work? I did remember. Jake's housewarming party back in September. I'd been bummed about missing most of it because I'd picked up an extra shift in the ER. Sarah had offered to make sure Mark got home safe. How thoughtful of her. So this whole time, while I've been planning our future, you've been planning your exit strategy? Mark shook his head frantically. No, it's not like that. I love you. This thing with Sarah, it's complicated. It's really not complicated at all, I said, pulling my suitcase toward the door. You wanted her more than you wanted me, and now you have her. Congratulations. I walked through the living room one more time, looking at all the stuff we'd accumulated together. The throw pillows I'd picked out at Target, the framed photos from our trip to Colorado last year, the coffee table we'd assembled together while arguing about the instructions. It felt like looking at artifacts from someone else's life. Where are you going? Mark asked, following me to the door. That's not really your concern anymore. Come on, don't be like this. We can figure it out. The 3 of us, we can work through this. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob and turned back to look at him. The 3 of us? Sarah stepped forward, and I could see her trying to put on her most sincere expression. What Mark's trying to say is, maybe this doesn't have to end everything. Maybe we could all try to understand each other better. Are you seriously suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm just saying people have different kinds of relationships these days, more open arrangements. It doesn't have to be so black and white. The audacity was honestly breathtaking. I looked back and forth between them, these 2 people who had completely rearranged my life without bothering to ask my opinion about it. You know what? You're absolutely right. This doesn't have to be black and white. I smiled at them both. It can be crystal clear. We're done. All of us. You 2 deserve each other. And with that, I walked out and closed the door behind me. My phone started ringing before I even made it to my car. Mark's ringtone, that annoying song he'd picked because he thought it was funny. I declined the call and drove away. The thing is, walking away felt good, like really good. Better than I'd felt in months, maybe years. It was weird realizing that the end of my engagement felt more like freedom than loss. I spent the rest of that week at Katie's place, sleeping in her guest room and helping her grade papers in the evenings. She taught 4th grade, and reading. Their little essays about what they wanted to be when they grew up was exactly the kind of wholesome distraction I needed. You're handling this really well, she said one night over Chinese takeout. Better than I would. I keep waiting for it to hit me, I admitted, twirling lo mein around my chopsticks. Like, shouldn't I be more upset? Shouldn't I be crying into a pint of Ben & Jerry's and listening to sad songs? Maybe, Katie shrugged. Or maybe you're just ready to move on. Sometimes our hearts know things before our heads catch up. She was right. My heart had checked out of that relationship months ago. I just hadn't realized it yet. All those nights when Mark would try to hold me and I'd find excuses to stay up later, or when he'd suggest date nights and I'd rather work overtime. I thought it was just stress from wedding planning, but looking back, I think I was already pulling away. By Friday, I'd made some decisions. I called the wedding venue and canceled everything, losing our deposit but feeling lighter with each vendor I crossed off the list. I called my landlord and explained the situation. Turned out Mark couldn't afford the rent on his own anyway, so we worked out a deal where I could break the lease without penalty if I found someone to take over my half. The hardest call was to my mom. She'd been so excited about the wedding, already talking about grandkids and family holidays, but when I told her what happened, she surprised me. Honey, I have to be honest with you. I never thought Mark was good enough for you anyway. Mom, you never said anything. It wasn't my place. But now that it's over, I can tell you, he never looked at you the way a man should look at the woman he wants to marry. You deserve someone who sees you as the sun and the moon, not someone who sees you as comfortable and convenient. Leave it to my mom to cut right to the heart of things. Update, final update, and wow, what a week it's been. Your comments have been everything. The support, the advice, even the tough love some of you gave me. You asked what happened next, so here it is. I'm doing amazing, like genuinely better than I've been in years. But the real tea? They're not doing so hot. Apparently karma works faster than I expected. Want to hear how this whole thing ended? Up? So here's where it gets interesting. While I was busy getting my life together, Mark and Sarah were busy falling apart. Turns out, relationships built on betrayal don't have the strongest foundations. Who would have thought? I heard this through the grapevine. Well, actually through Jake, whose housewarming party had apparently been the scene of their first hookup. He called me about 2 weeks after I moved out, ostensibly to check on me but really to spill the tea. Dude, you're not gonna believe this, he said, and I could practically hear him grinning through the phone. Mark and Sarah are already fighting like cats and dogs. Apparently, once the thrill of sneaking around was gone, they realized they didn't actually have much in common. Sarah was already complaining that Mark was too clingy, and Mark was freaking out because Sarah kept going out to bars without him. The same behaviors that had probably made their affair exciting were now causing problems in their actual relationship. She's been flirting with other guys right in front of him, Jake continued. And he's getting all jealous and possessive. It's a mess. I felt a little petty satisfaction hearing that, not gonna lie. But mostly, I just felt relieved that I wasn't part of that drama anymore. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I'd found a cute little one-bedroom apartment closer to the hospital, which cut my commute in half. I was sleeping better, eating better, even picked up some hobbies I'd neglected during the relationship, started rock climbing at this gym downtown, joined a book club at the local library, learned how to make proper French press coffee instead of relying on whatever was in the break room at work. The really crazy part? I was happier single than I'd been in a relationship for months. About 3 weeks after the whole mess started, both Mark and Sarah started reaching out again. Not together. Apparently they'd broken up after some big fight about Sarah kissing some guy at a bar. The irony was not lost on me. Mark's messages started apologetic and evolved into desperate. Long text walls about how he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, how Sarah had manipulated him, how he wanted to work things out between us. He conveniently forgot to mention that he'd been the one suggesting a three-way relationship just weeks earlier. Sarah's approach was different. She started with fake casual texts, "Hey girl, hope you're doing okay," and gradually worked up to trying to place all the blame on Mark. According to her version of events, he'd pursued her relentlessly, and she'd just been a victim of his charm. The same charm that had apparently worn off pretty quickly once they were actually together. I didn't respond to either of them. Not out of spite, but because I genuinely had nothing to say. Their drama felt like watching a TV show about people I used to know. The funniest part was when they both started showing up at places they knew I'd be. Mark at the coffee shop near the hospital where I usually grabbed my morning latte. Sarah at the yoga studio I'd started attending on weekends. They'd try to corner me for just a quick conversation or closure. But here's the thing about closure. You don't need it from other people. You make it yourself. One Saturday morning, I was at the farmer's market picking up fresh vegetables for the weekend, another new habit I developed, when I ran into both of them, together. Apparently, they were trying to work things out again. The awkwardness was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "Hey," Mark said, approaching cautiously like I was a wild animal that might bolt. "You look good." I did look good. I'd been taking better care of myself, getting enough sleep, actually using those expensive skincare products I'd been saving for special occasions. Funny how leaving a bad relationship can be better than any beauty treatment. "Thanks," I said, simply continuing to examine the heirloom tomatoes at the stand. Sarah hung back, probably trying to figure out if this was her moment to jump in with her own agenda. The vendor, an older woman with kind eyes, seemed to sense the tension and busied herself rearranging her display. "Listen," Mark continued, "I know I messed up. We both did. But maybe we could grab coffee sometime, just to talk?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering love, just nothing. It was the most liberating feeling in the world. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said, "but I hope you both figure out what you're looking for. And I meant it. Not in a sarcastic way, but genuinely. They were clearly both miserable, bouncing between each other and other people, looking for something to fill whatever emptiness had led them to blow up their lives in the first place. That's it? Sarah finally spoke up. You're just gonna act like we never mattered to you? I paid the vendor for my tomatoes and turned to face them both. You did matter to me, a lot, but that was before you decided I didn't matter to you. Mark opened his mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt anymore. I'm just done. And honestly, I'm grateful. You freed me from a relationship that wasn't working and a friendship that wasn't real. So thank you. The look on their faces was something else. Confusion, frustration, maybe a little bit of wounded pride. They'd expected drama, tears, begging, anger, something they could work with. My contentment and indifference were apparently harder to handle than any emotional outburst would have been. I walked away from them that day and felt like I was walking toward my real life, the life I was supposed to be living. 6 months later, I'm writing this from my new apartment, which I've decorated exactly how I want it. There's a reading nook by the window where I drink my morning coffee and watch the sunrise. There are plants everywhere. Turns out I have a green thumb when I'm not too stressed to remember to water things. There are photos on the walls of trips I've taken with Katie, nights out with new friends from my book club, hiking adventures, cooking experiments. My career is going great. I got promoted to charge nurse and I'm considering going back to school for my nurse practitioner license. I'm dating someone new, a pediatric doctor I met at the hospital who makes me laugh until my stomach hurts and looks at me like my mom said someone should. As for Mark and Sarah, last I heard through the grapevine, they're still on and off, still making each other miserable, still trying to find in each other what they lost when they decided betrayal was worth more than loyalty. My phone doesn't ring with their desperate calls anymore. My apartment doesn't echo with their drama. My life doesn't revolve around trying to fix what was never really working in the first place. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't getting back at people who hurt you. It's building a life so good that their absence feels like a gift rather than a loss. It's becoming so genuinely happy that their attempts to re-enter your life feel like interruptions to something better, rather than opportunities to return to something familiar. I used to think that walking away from Mark and Sarah meant giving up and letting them win. But now I know the truth. Walking away was the only way I could win. Not against them, but for myself. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just smile and keep walking toward the life that's waiting for you on the other side of the door.